Part 4th, Section 2. Robin seeketh the Curtal Friar of the Fountain. The stout yeomen of Sherwood Forest were ever early risers of a morn, more especially when the summertime had come, for then in the freshness of the dawn the dew was always the brightest, and the songs of the small birds the sweetest. Quoth Robin, Now will I go to seek the same friar of Fountain Abbey of whom we spake yesterday, and I will take with him 4 of my good men, and these 4 shall be Little John, Will Scarlet, David of Doncaster, and Arthur of Bland. Bide the rest of you here, and Will Steadily shall be your chief while I am gone. Then straightway Robin Hood donned a fine sleek coat of chainmail, over which he put a light jacket of Lincoln green. Upon his head he clapped a steel cap, and this he covered by one of soft white leather, in which stood a nodding cock's plume. By his side he hung a good broadsword of tempered steel, the bluish blade marked all over with strange figures of dragons, winged women, and what not. A gallant sight was Robin so arrayed, I wot, the glint of steel showing here and there as the sunlight caught brightly the links of polished mail that showed beneath his green coat. So having arrayed himself, he and the 4 yeomen sat forth this way, Will Scarlet taking the head, for he knew better than the others whither to go. Thus mile after mile they strode along, now across a brawling stream, now along a sunlit road, now adown some sweet forest path over which the trees met in green and rustling canopy, and at the end of which a herd of startled deer dashed away, with rattles of leaves and crackle of branches. Onward they walked with song and jest and laughter till noontide was past, when at last they came to the banks of a wide, grassy, and lily-padded stream. Here a broad, beaten path stretched along beside the banks, on which path labored the horses that tugged at the slow-moving barges, laden with barley meal or what not, from the countryside to the many towering towns. But now, in the hot silence of the midday, no horse was seen nor any man beside themselves. Behind them and before them stretched the river, its placid bosom ruffled here and there by the purple dusk of a small breeze. Now, good uncle, quoth Will Scarlet at last, when they had walked for a long time beside the sweet bright river. Just beyond yon bend ahead of us is a shallow ford, which no place is deeper than thy mid-thigh, and upon the other side of the stream is a certain little hermitage, hidden amidst the bosky tangle of the thickets, where within dwell the friar of Fountain Dale. Thither I will lead thee, for I know the way, albeit not over hard to the fine. Nay, quoth jolly Robin, stopping suddenly, had I thought that I should have had to wade water, even were it so crystal a stream as this, I had donned other clothes than I had upon me. But no matter now, for after all, a wetting will not wash the skin away, and what must be must. But bid ye here, lads, for I would enjoy this merry adventure alone. Nevertheless, listen well, and if ye hear me sound upon my bugle horn, come quickly. 'Tis ever thus, said Little John, half muttering. Thou dost always seek these ventures alone, whilst we, whose lives are but of small worth beside thine, and who would be but too glad to enter upon them, must sit, as it were, twiddling our thumbs in idleness. Nay, Little John, quoth jolly Robin, this venture, I wot, is without danger to me. I know thou art over ready to peril thyself. Nevertheless, bid thou here this time as I bid thee. So saying, he turned and left them, striding onward alone. Robin had walked no further than where the bend of the road hid his good men from view, when he stopped suddenly, for he thought that he heard voices. He stood still and listened, and presently heard words pass back and forth betwixt what seemed to be 2 men, and yet the 2 voices were wondrously alike. The sound came from over behind the bank, and there was a steep high, dropping from the edge of the road at 50 feet to the sedgy verge of the river. "'Tis strange," muttered Robin to himself after a space, when the voice had ceased their talking. "Surely there be 2 people that spoke, the one to the other, and yet methinks their voices are mightily alike. I make my vow that I never ever heard the like in all my life before. Truly, if this twain were to be judged by their voices, no 2 peas were ever more alike. I will look into this matter." So saying, he came softly to the river bank, and laying down upon the grass, peered over the edge and down below. All was cool and shady beneath the bank. A stout osier grew now, straight upward, but leaning across the water, showering the spot with its soft foliage. All around grew a mass of feathery ferns such as hid and nestle in cool places, and up to Robin's nostrils came the tender odor of the wild thyme, that loves the moist verges of running streams. Here, with his broad back against the running trunk of the willow tree, and half hidden by the soft ferns round him, sat a stout, brawny fellow, but no other man was there. His head was as round as a ball and covered with a mat of close-clipped curly black hair that grew low down on his forehead. But his crown was as smooth as the palm of one's hand, which together with his loose robes, cowl, and string of beads, showed that which he looks never would have done, that he was a friar. His cheeks were as red and shining as a white winter crab, albeit they were nearly covered with a close curly black beard, as were his chin and upper lip likewise. His neck was thick like that of a north country bull, and his round head closely set upon shoulders, even a match of those of Little John himself. Beneath his bushy black brows danced a pair of little grey eyes that could not stand still for very drollery of humor. No man could look into his face and not feel his heartstrings tickled by the merriment of their look. By his side lay a steel cap which he had laid off for the sake of the coolness of his crown. His legs were stretched wide apart, and betwixt his knees he held a great pasty compounded of juicy meats of driver kinds, made savory with tender young onions, both meat and onions being mingled with a good rich gravy. In his right fist he held a great piece of brown crust, at which he munched sturdily, and every now and then thrust his hand into the pie and drew it forth full of meat. Anon he would have taken a mighty pull of a great bottle of Mamesley that lay beside him. By my faith, quoth Robin to himself, I do verily believe that this is the merriest feast, the merriest rite, the merriest place, and the merriest sight in all of merry England. Methought there was another here, but it must have been this holy man talking to himself. So Robin lay watching the friar, and the friar, all unknowing that he was so overlooked, ate his meal placidly. Alas, he was done, and, having first wiped his greasy hands upon the ferns and wild thyme, and sweet napkin, I never had a king in all the world, he took up his flask and began talking to himself, as though he were another man, and answering himself as though he were somebody else. Dear lad, thou art the sweetest fellow in all the world. I do love thee as a lover loveth his lass. La, thou dost make me shame to speak so to me in this solitary place, no one being by, and yet, if thou wilt have me say so, I do love thee as thou lovest me. Nay then, wilt thou not take a drink of good Mamesley? After thee, lad, after thee. Nay, I beseech thee, sweeten the draught in thy lips. Here he passed the flask from his right hand to his left. And thou wilt force it on me, so I must drink, do thy bidding, yet with the more pleasure do I, so as I drink this very great health. Here he took a long, deep draught. And now, sweet lad, 'tis thy turn next. There he passed the bottle from his left hand back to his right. I take it, sweet chuck, and here's wishing thee as much good as thou wishest me. Saying this, he took another draught, and truly he drank enough for two. At this time, merry Robin lay upon the bank and listening, while his stomach so quaked with laughter that he was forced to press his palm across his mouth to keep it from bursting forth. For, truly, he would have spoiled such a goodly jest for the rest of Nottinghamshire. Having gotten his breath from his last draught, the friar began talking again in this wise. Now, sweet lad, canst thou not sing me a song? La, I know not. I am but in an ill voice this day. Pray thee, ask me not. Dost thou not hear how I croak like a frog? Nay, nay, thy voice is as sweet as any bullfinch. Come, sing, I pray thee. I would rather hear thee sing than eat a fair feast. Alas, I would fain not sing before one that can pipe so well, and hath heard so many goodly songs and ballads. Nevertheless, an thou wilt have it so, I will do my best. But now methinks that thou and I might sing some fair song together. Dost thou not know a certain dainty little catch called the Loving Youth and the Scornful Maid? Why, truly, methinks I have heard it now and there now. Then dost thou not think that thou couldst take the lass's part if I take the lad's? I know not, but I will try. Begin thou with the lad, and I will follow with the lass. Then singing first with a deep voice, and gruff, and aeon, and one high and squeaking, he blithely told the merry catch of the Loving Youth and the Scornful Maid. He, Ah, it wilt thou come with me, my love, and with it thou'lt love be mine. For I give thee unto thee, my love, gay knots and ribbons so fine. I woe thee, love, on my bending knee, and I pipe sweet songs to none but thee. It is hark, 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 to the winged lark, it's hark to the cooing dove, and doth daffodil growth down by the rill, so come thou and be my love. She. Now get thee away, young man so fine, now get thee away, I say, for my true love shall never be thine, so thou hadst better not stay. Thou art not fine enough, long mad for me, so I'll wait a better young man I see. For it's hark, 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 it's the winged lark, it's hark to the cooing dove, and the bright daffodil growth down by the rill, yet never I'll be thy love. He. Then straightway I seek for another fair she, for many a maid can be found, and as thou wilt never have naught of me, by thee will I never be bound. For never is a bloom in the field so rare, but never are found just as fair. So it's hark, 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 to the joyous lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, and the bright daffodil growth down by the rill, and I'll seek me another dear love. She. Young man, turn not so very quick, another lass to find. Methinks I have spoken in haste today, nor have I made up my mind. And if thou only wilt stay with me, I'll love no other sweet lad but thee. Here Robin contained himself no longer, but burst forth into a mighty roar of laughter. Then the holy friar, keeping on with the song, he joined in the chorus, and together they sang, or as one might say, bellowed, So it's hark, 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 to the joyous lark, and it's hark to the cooing dove, for the bright daffodil growth down by the rill, and I'll be thine own true love. So they sang together, for the stout friar did not seem to have heard Robin's laughter, neither did he seem to know that the yeoman had joined in with the song, but, with eyes half closed, looking straight before him and wagging his round head from side to side, in time to the music, he kept on bravely to the end. He and Robin finished up with a mighty roar that might have been heard a mile. But no sooner had the last word been sung, when the holy man seized his steel cap, clapped it on his head, and springing to his feet, cried in a great voice, What spy have we here? Come forth, thou limb of evil, and I will carve thee into a fine pudding meat as ever a wife in Yorkshire cooked of a Sunday. Hereupon he drew from beneath his robe a great rusty sword, full as stout as was Robin's. Nay, put up thy picking iron, friend, quoth Robin, standing up with tears of laughter still on his cheek. Folk who have sung so sweetly together should not fight thereafter. Hereupon he leaped down the bank to where the other stood. I tell thee, friend, said me, my throat is as parched with the song as ever a barley stubble in October. Hast thou haply any Mamesley left in that stout pottle? Truly, said the friar in a glum voice, thou dost ask thyself freely where thou art not bidden. Yet I trust I am too good a Christian to refuse any man drink that is athirst, such as there is, or thou art welcome to drink of the same. And he held the pottle out to Robin. Robin took it without much ado, and putting it to his lips, tilted his head back, while that which was within said, glug, glug, glug. For more than 3 winks, I wot. The stout friar watched Robin anxiously the while, and when he was done, took the pottle quickly. He shook it, held it betwixt his eyes in the light, looking reproachfully at the yeoman, and straightway placed it at his own lips. Then it came away again where there was naught within it. Dost thou know the country hereabouts, thou good and holy man? Asked Robin, laughing. Yea, somewhat, answered the other dryly. And dost thou know of a certain spot called Fountain Abbey? Yea, somewhat. Then perchance thou knowest also a certain one that goeth by the name of the Curtal Friar of Fountain Abbey? Yea, somewhat. Well then, good fellow, holy father, or whatever thou art, quoth Robin, I would know whether the same friar is to be found upon the side of the river or the other. That, quoth the friar, is a practical question upon which the cunning rules appertaining to logic touch none. I do advise thee to find that out by the aid of thine own 5 senses, sight, feeling, and what not. I do wish much, quoth Robin, looking thoughtfully at the stout priest, to cross yon ford, and strive to find the same good friar. Truly, said the other piously, is a goodly wish on the part of one so young. Far be it from me to cheek thee in a holy quest. Friend, the river is free to all. Yea, good father, said Robin, but thou seemest that my clothes are of the finest, and I fain would not get them wet. Methinks thy shoulders are stout and broad. Couldst thou not find it in thy heart to carry me across? Now, by the white hand of the Holy Lady of the Fountain, burst forth the friar in a mighty rage, dost thou, thou poor punny stripling, thou kiss my lady la popinjay? Thou? What shall I call thee? Dost thou ask me, the holy tuck, to carry thee? Now, I swear. Here he paused suddenly, then slowly the anger passed from his face, and his little eyes twinkled once more. But why should I not? Quoth he piously. Did not the holy St. Christopher ever carry the stranger across the river? And should I, poor sinner that I am, be ashamed to do likewise? Come with me, stranger, and I will do thy bidding in a humble frame of mind." So saying, he clamped up the bank, closely followed by Robin, and led the way to the shallow, pebbly ford, clinging to himself the while as though he was enjoying some goodly jest with himself. Having come to the ford, he girded up his robes about his loins, tucked his good broadsword beneath his arm, and stooped his back to take Robin upon it. Suddenly he straightened up. "Methinks," quoth he, "thou'lt get thy weapon wet. Let me tuck it beneath mine arm along with mine own." "Nay, good father," said Robin, "I will not burden thee with aught of mine but myself." "Dost thou think," said the friar mildly, "that the good Saint Christopher would have sought his own ease so? Nay, give me thine tool as I bid thee, for I would carry it as a penance to my pride." Upon this, without more ado, Robin Hood unbuckled his sword from his side and hanged it to the other, who thus trussed it with his own beneath his arm. Then once more the friar bent his back, and Robin having mounted upon it, he stepped sturdily into the water, so strode onward, splashing in the shoal and breaking all the smooth surface into ever-widening rings. At last he reached the other side, and Robin leaped lightly from his back. "Many thanks, good father," quoth he. "Thou art indeed a good and holy man. Pray thee give me my sword, and let me away, for I am in haste." At this the stout friar looked upon Robin for a long time, his head to one side with a most ragged twist in his face. Then he slowly winked his right eye. "Nay, good youth," he said gently, "I doubt not that thou art in haste with thine affair, yet thou dost think nothing of mine. Thine of our cardinal nature, mine are of a spiritual nature, a holy work, so to speak. Moreover, mine affairs do lie upon the other side of the stream. I see by thy quest of the same holy recluse that thou art a good young man and most reverent to the cloth. I did get wet coming hither, and am sadly afraid that should I wade the river again, I might get certain cricks and pains in the joints that would may my devotions for many a day to come. I know that since I have so humble done thy bidding, thou wilt carry me back again. Thou seemest how good Saint Godric, the holy hermit, whose natal day this is, hath placed in my hands 2 swords, and in thine never a one. Therefore, be persuaded, good youth, and carry me back again." Robin Hood looked up, and he looked down, biting his nether lip. Quoth he, "Thou cunning friar, thou hast me fair and fast now. Let me think thee that not as one of thy cloth hath so hoodwinked me in all my life before. I might have known from thy looks that thou wert no such holy man as thou didst pretend to be." "Nay," interrupted the friar, "I bid thee speak not so scrupulously neither, lest thou may perchance feel the prick of an inch or so of blue steel." "Tut, tut," said Robin, "speak not so, friar. The loser hath never the right to use his tongue as he doth list. Give me my sword, I do promise to carry thee back straight away. Nay, I will not lift the weapon against thee." "Marry, come up," quoth the friar. "I fear thee not, fellow. Here is thy skewer, and get thyself presently ready, for I would hasten back." So Robin took his sword again, and buckled it at his side. Then he bent his stout back, and took the friar upon it. Now I wot Robin Hood had a heavier load to carry in the friar than the friar had in him. Moreover, he did not know the ford, so he had stumbled along the stones, now stepping in a deep hole, and now nearly tripping over a boulder, while the sweat ran down his face in beads from the hardness of his journey and the heaviness of his load. Meantime, the friar kept digging in his heels into Robin's sides, and bidding him hasten, calling him many ill names the while. To all this, Robin answered never a word, but, having softly felt around till he found the cudgel of the belt that held the friar's sword, he worked slyly at the fastenings, seeking to loosen them. Thus it came about, by the time he had reached the other side of the bank with his load, the friar's sword belt was loose, albeit he knew it not. So when Robin stood on dry land and the friar leaped down from his back, the yeoman gripped hold of the sword so that the blade, sheath, and strap came away from the holy man, leaving him without a weapon. "Now then," quoth merry Robin, panting as he spake, and wiping the sweat from his brow, "I have thee, fellow, this time that same saint of whose thou didst speak, but not hath delivered 2 swords into my hands, and hath stripped thine away from thee. Now if thou dost not carry me back, and that speedily, I swear I will prick thy skin till it is as full of holes as a slashed doublet." The good friar said not a word for a while, but he looked at Robin Hood with a grim fit. "Now," said he at last, "I did think that thy wits were of a heavy sort, and knew not that thou wert so cunning. Truly thou hast me upon the hip. Give me my sword, and I promise not to draw it against thee, save in self-defence. Also I promise to do thy bidding, and take thee upon my back and carry thee. So jolly Robin gave him his sword again, which the friar buckled to his side, and this time looked at it that it was more secure in its fastening. Then, tucking up his ropes once more again, he took Robin Hood upon his back, and without a word stepped into the water, and so waded on in silence while Robin sat laughing upon his back. At last he reached the middle of the ford, where the water was deepest. Here he stopped for a moment, and then with a sudden lift of his hand and heave of his shoulder, fairly shot Robin over his head as though he were a sack of grain. Down went Robin into the water with a mighty splash. There, quoth the holy man, calmly turning back again to the shore, let thou cool thy hot spirit if it may. Meantime, after much splashing, Robin had gotten to his feet, and stood gazing about him all bewildered, the water running from him in pretty little rills. At last he shot the water out of his ears, and spat some out of his mouth, and gathering his scattered wits together, saw the stout friar standing on the bank and laughing. Then I wot was Robin Hood a madman. Stay, thou villain, roared he, I am after thee straight, and if I do not carve thy brawn for thee this day, may I never lift finger again. So saying, he dashed, splashing, to the bank. Thou needest not hasten thyself unduly, quoth the stout friar. Fear not, I will abide here, and if thou dost not cry alack a day, ere long time is gone, may I never more peep through the drake at a fallow deer. Now Robin, having reached the bank, began without more ado to roll up his sleeves above his wrists. The friar also, tucking his robes more about him, showed a great stout arm on which the muscles stood out like humps of aged tree. Then Robin saw what he had not wanted of before, that the friar also had a coat of chain beneath his gown. Look to thyself, cried Robin, drawing his good sword. Ay, marry, quoth the friar, who held his already in his hand. So without more ado, they came together, and thereupon began a fierce and mighty battle. Right and left and up and down and back and forth they fought. The swords flashed in the sun, and then met with a clash that sounded far and near. I wot this was no playful bout at quarterstaff, but a grim and serious fight of real earnest. Thus they strove for an hour or more, pausing every now and then to rest, at which times each looked at the other with wonder, and thought that never had he seen so stout a fellow. Then once again they would go at it more fiercely than ever. Yet, in all this time, neither had harmed the other nor caused his blood to flow. At last merry Robin cried, Hold thy hand, good friend. Thereupon both lowered their swords. Now I crave a boon ere we begin again, quoth Robin, wiping the sweat from his brow, for they had striven so long that I began to think that it would be an ill-done thing either to be smitten himself, or to be smit so stout and brave a fellow. What wouldst thou have of me? Asked the friar. Only this, quoth Robin, that thou wilt let me blow thrice upon my bugle horn. The friar bent his brow, and looked shrewdly at Robin Hood. Now I do verily think that thou hast some cunning trick in this, quoth he. Nevertheless I fear thee not, and will let thee have thy wish, provided thou wilt also let me blow thrice upon this little whistle. With all my heart, quoth Robin. So here goes for one. So saying, he raised the silver horn to his lips, and blew thrice upon it, clear and high. Meantime the friar stood watching keenly for what might come to pass, holding his fingers, and while a pretty silver whistle, such as knights use for calling their hawks back to their wrist, which whistle always hung at his girdle along with his rosary. Scarcely had the echo of the last note of Robin's bugle come winding back from across the river, when 4 tall men in Lincoln green came running around the bend of the road, each with a blow in his hand and an arrow ready knocked upon the string. Ha! It is thus, thou traitor knave, cried the friar. Then marry, look to thyself. So saying, he straightway clapped the hawk's whistle to his lips, and blew a blast that was both loud and shrill. And now there came a crackling of the bushes that lined the other side of the road, and presently forth from the covert burst 4 great shaggy hounds. Adam, sweet lips, Adam, bell throats, Adam, beauty, Adam, fangs, cried the friar, pointing at Robin. And now it was well, for that yeoman had a tree stood nigh him beside the road, else he had an ill chance of it. Ere one could say, Gaffer down the dale, the hounds were upon him, and he had only time to drop his sword and leap lightly into the tree around which the hounds gathered, looking up at him as though he were a cat on the eaves. But the friar quickly called off the dogs. Adam, cried he, pointing down to the road to where the yeomen were standing stock still with wonder of what they saw. As the hawk darts down upon its quarry, so sped the 4 dogs at the yeomen. But when the 4 men saw the hounds coming, all with one accord, saving only Will Scarlet, drew each man his goose feather to his ear, and let fly his shaft. And now the old ballad telleth of a wondrous thing that happened, for thus it says that each dog so shot at leaping lightly aside, and as the arrow passed him, whistling, caught it in his mouth, and bit it into twain. Now it would have been an ill day for these 4 good fellows had not Will Scarlet stepped forward, the others, and met the hounds as they came brushing. "Why, how now, Fang?" cried he sternly. "Down, Beauty! Down, Seerhair! What means this?" At the sound of his voice, each dog shrank back quickly, and then straightway came to him and licked his hands and fawned upon him, as it the wont of dogs that meet one they know. Then the 4 yeomen came forward, and the hounds leaped around Will Scarlet joyously. "Why, how now?" cried the stout Friar. "What means this? Art thou turned wizard? Turn these wolves into lambs?" "Ha!" cried he, when they had come nearer. "Can I trust mine own eyes? What means it that I see young Master William Gamwell in such company?" "Nay, Tuck," said the young man, as the 4 came forward to where Robin was now clambering down from the tree in which he had been roosting, he having seen that all danger was over for the time. "Nay, Tuck, my name is no longer Will Gamwell, but Will Scarlet, and this is my good uncle Robin Hood, with whom I am abiding just now." "Truly, good master," said the friar, looking somewhat abashed, and reaching out his great palm to Robin, "I have oft heard thy name, both sung and spoken of, but I never thought to meet thee in battle. I crave thy forgiveness, and do wonder not that I found so stout a man against me." "Truly, most holy father," said Little John, "I am more thankful than ever I was in all my life before that our good friend Scarlet knew thee and thy dogs. I tell thee seriously that I felt my heart crumble away from me when I saw my shaft so miss its aim, and those great beasts of thine coming straight at me." "Thou mayest indeed be thankful, friend," said the friar gravely. "But, Master Will, how cometh that thou dost not abide in Sherwood?" "Why, Tuck, dost thou not know of my ill happening with my father's steward?" answered Scarlet. "Yea, truly, yet I knew not that thou wert in hiding because of it. Marry, the times are all airy when a gentleman must be lie hidden for so small a thing. But we are losing time," quoth Robin, "and I have yet to find the same Curtal Friar." "But, uncle, thou hast not far to go," said Will Scarlet, pointing to the friar, "for there he stands beside thee." "How?" quoth Robin. "Art thou the man that I have been at such pains to seek all day, and have got such a ducking for?" "Why, truly," said the friar demurely. "Some do call me the Curtal Friar of Fountaindale, others call me in jest the abbot of the Fountain Abbey. Others still again call me simple Friar Tuck." "I like the last name the best," quoth Robin, "for it doth slip more glibly off the tongue. And why doubtest thou not tell me thou wert he I sought instead of sending me to searching for black moonbeams?" "Why, truly, thou didst not ask me, good master," quoth stout Tuck, "but thou didst thou desire of me." "Nay," quoth Robin, "the day groweth late, and we cannot stand talking longer here. Come back with us to Sherwood, and I will unfold all to thee as we travel along." So without tarrying longer, they all departed with the stout dogs at their heels, and wending their way back to Sherwood again. But it was long past nightfall ere they reached the greenwood tree. Now listen, for next I will tell how Robin Hood compassed the happiness of 2 young lovers, abided and aided by the merry Friar Tuck of Fountaindale.